First things first, let's just get this out of the way. The modern day of this game absolutely pains me, so we're just going to cut it entirely. Our story begins again with the execution of Jacques de Molay, followed by the exact same Palace of Versailles sequence with Arnaud as a boy. He meets Elise, sees his father die, gets the watch, and gets taken in by Francois de la Serre. And as we jump into Arnaud's life in 1789, we once again don't change anything. We simply introduce Arnaud as this mischievous lost boy. After the first chase, Arnaud returns back to the de la Serre house, meeting Monsieur de la Serre at the door, with Arnaud's chasers right behind. They claim Arnaud stole their watch, but de la Serre steps in, telling them that revenge will get them nowhere and that he'll work it all out. Arnaud goes on to find out that who else is in town but Elise, his, adopted sister. That's kind of weird. Let's ignore it. I mean, the original game ignored it. A major reason Unity's story at times feels so forgettable is due to its lack of missions. The story itself is far too short, with only 2 or 3 missions in each sequence, never giving us enough of a chance to flesh out relationships with these characters. So throughout this rewrite, I'll be adding in certain missions to try and flesh out said relationships. As soon as Arnaud hears Elise is in town, staying at Hotel Mercure, he simply has to see her. Sneaking back out, he makes his way to the hotel, similar to the Christina sequence in AC2. So, in other words, we see the two have some quality banter, and then, Arnaud leaves before nightfall, sneaking back into his room and going to sleep. The next day, he's woken up by de la Serre, telling him he's got plenty of chores to do. He again finds out about the ball he wasn't invited to and heads back to the Palace of Versailles. We get the exact same ball sequence. Arnaud is clearly head over heels with Elise. He sneaks in past the guard at the door, who continues to recognize him. We get the same moment in that room before Elise gets a knock on the door.
Madame de la Serre, we need you out here.
Elise kicks Arnaud out, and as soon as he makes his way back to the gate, he hears commotion from the courtyard. And here's where we get the biggest change of this rewrite. Elise is killed. Now, before you hate me, before you compare me to Serge Hascott, hear me out. The opening of Unity for a lot of people doesn't really have as much emotional impact as it should, as from our perspective, we see 2 father figures of Arnaud's be killed within a 5-minute span, even though for him it was 13 years. De la Serre's death doesn't hit the player nearly as much as it should, because Arnaud never shows any real emotional connection to him. Elise, on the other hand, we can see from the offset is essentially the love of his life, someone he's known nearly all his life, and we see genuine chemistry between them. So in this alternate game, instead of Arnaud seeing Francois de la Serre's death, he only hears some commotion. As he reaches the gate, the guard from before catches up to him. Trying to escape, are you?
Come on, man, I only broke into a party. Is that a federal offense?
Nice try, young man. Guards, arrest him.
Arrest? For what?
De la Serre appears.
Arnaud,
You're under arrest for the murder of Elise de la Serre.
Elise? Murdered? No, I just saw Elise. She's not...
So the boy admits it. He just saw her. This should be an easy trial.
Monsieur de la Serre, you know me, I didn't. There's no way I could have. Monsieur de la Serre.
Arnaud, being dragged into a carriage, sees in the distance women crying, seeing Sivert and Detoun, before seeing a stretcher with a sheet covering it, and a single hand hanging off the edges. Elise, Arnaud screams as his carriage door is slammed shut. Cut to the Bastille, and again, little changes in this sequence, except for the fact that we see a much more depressed Arnaud. Here, I feel the Marquis de Sade should be properly introduced, as opposed to just shown for a second, as Arnaud builds a connection he'll use later on. We see him dream of Elise, before he wakes, and...
Where'd you come by this, piss pot?
I'm in no mood for this. Give it back!
Take it back. If you think you can.
Arnaud's introduction to the assassins is the perfect way to do it, in my opinion. This lost boy, now cast out from the only last inkling of love he had, desperately searching for a family, for some type of order in his life. Balek should be somewhat manipulative, acting as a father figure, the last connection to Arnaud's blood father, as he explains the conflict of the assassins and Templars, and finally, the key to getting Arnaud in. He reveals that it was the Templars that framed Arnaud for the death of Elise. Again, here the rebirth sequence of Arnaud should stay the same, but a massive change we need to make here is essentially adding a sequence. Unity's story, as I said, often falls flat because of a lack of true character building. So before Arnaud becomes a fully fledged assassin, we get a sequence of training from Belek, similar to that of Mario's training of Ezio or Achilles' training of Connor. As the game teaches the player some of the skills and gameplay mechanics not fully explained, Arno and Belek can build a true relationship, as Belek tells Arno stories of his father's victories. This can all lead to a specific training mission where the two run into Sivert, and we see Arno's true motives appear. Arno is hell-bent, obsessed with getting revenge for Elise's murder, so as soon as he sees Sivert, he goes into a fanatical anger, only just held back by Belek, who tells Arno he needs to wait for the right time. The two return to the council, explaining that they found the location of Sivert, but Mirabeau and Belliere in particular are skeptical. They worry that Arno is simply seeking vengeance, but Belek is able to convince them, saying that this is an opportunity they can't let slip away. Mirabeau is intent on keeping the truce in balance, but reluctantly allows Arno to hunt Sivert. And so Arno again kills Sivert, who further leads him to his Templar conspirator Roy de Thun, aka the King of Beggars. But here the council aren't so open. Mirabeau claims striking too hard at the Templars could have a dismal result that destroys the peace. Arno, on the other hand, is furious. He leaves, but Belek catches up to him. Pierre here tries to connect with Arno, saying he deserves revenge for what happened, feeding those fires of Arno's rage. Belek tells Arno he'll cover for him, so that Arno can go after de Thun, and so he does just that. Arno first tracks down his old inmate, the Marquis de Sade, who immediately sees Arno as an opportunity to take control of the Court of Miracles. He leads Arno to a man named Latouche, who will lead him straight to de Thun, and we get essentially the same sequence in the Court of Miracles, with maybe a few added investigation missions. After de Thun is killed, Marquis takes full control, but Arno isn't too happy.
Killing de Thun got me nowhere. I'm no further in finding Elise's true killer than I was last year. You can hardly blame me for that. Well, it seems like you came out fine and dandy. Ah, but was your bloodlust not quenched? Your craving for revenge not satisfied? At least temporarily. We all eat here at the Court of Miracles, Arno. I'm done here. So I assume you have no interest in this?
Marquis holds up a pin, the same pin all Templars hold, the same pin that had killed Elise. Marquis leads Arno to Francois Thomas Germain, a silversmith for the Templars, and Arno, disgusted by Marquis, reluctantly accepts his advice and leaves. We again get the same introduction to Germain, a seemingly lost silversmith. Germain then tells Arno of a mass Templar conspiracy, led by a man named Lafreniere, and Arno, fearing for the safety of the Brotherhood, makes his way back to the headquarters. On his return, the council are in disarray, with the death of de Thun hitting just at the same time as France begins splitting at the seams. Arno lies about de Thun, claiming he had nothing to do with the death, claiming that he followed a completely separate lead, which has led him to Lafreniere. The council all claim to have never heard of such a man, and so rumours that he's planning to overtake the rule of Delaserre, who at this point is still alive, worries Mirabeau, and so the council give Arno leave to kill him. After a short sequence of investigation that leans heavily on the AC1 formula, Arno would make his way to the same graveyard to kill Lafreniere. He reaches the mysterious hooded man, but as soon as Arno's hidden blade breaks the skin of Lafreniere, he realizes he's made a grave mistake. Lafreniere isn't here. Lafreniere doesn't exist. No, Arno instead has killed his adoptive father, his mentor as a child, the Grand Master of the Templars, Francois Delaserre. Arno begins tearing up.
No, it can't be you. Where's Lafreniere? The irony. An assassin raised by Templars. What should I have expected? Monsieur Delaserre, I'm sorry, I didn't. Germain told me. Germain? The silversmith. He's more than a silversmith, boy. Huh, I should have known. Germain, after all this time in the shadows. Germain was a Templar boy, until I cast him out. You what? I guess I shouldn't be surprised. He was gonna come after me at some point. What do I do, Monsieur? Arno, I know you didn't kill Elise. You knew? You knew and you left me to the wolves, to the Bastille. I had to protect the order, to protect the balance. Arno,
Arno, tears covering his face as this Grandmaster dies in his arms, is speechless. Guards begin appearing around him, hundreds of guards. Face to face with Delaserre one last time, he says a quick goodbye before sprinting away, escaping the disaster he created. Reaching the headquarters, he knows in himself that he may have ruined his chance at redemption as he slowly walks up the spiral stairs.
How goes your goose chase?
I found Lafreniere.
Ah, good. Doesn't look like there'll be any Templar uprisings anytime soon then.
It seems that Lafreniere was a code name.
for Francois de la Serre. You found de la Serre, pisspot? We've been on his trail for 3 years and you found him in what, 2 weeks?
What can I say? I have a talent.
It doesn't matter. The truce, our truce with de la Serre is one I'm not willing to break.
You've got to be kidding me, Mirabeau. It's the Grand Master. The Templars are making moves. We need to as well. It's already done. De la Serre is dead.
He's what? You killed the Grand Master?
Everyone, calm down. Mirabeau, the boy killed the Grand Master. That's an honor.
That's a disaster, Belek.
Isn't that why we fight, Mirabeau? If he wants to kill Templars, let the boy kill Templars.
No. Arno, you've done many a service to this order, but this course of action has clearly been driven by a lust for revenge, and that's a line I can't take. For as long as it takes for you to see sense, you will be demoted from your role. Mirabeau, are you sure? That's final. France is splitting at the seams. We can't afford risky courses of action. Effective immediately, Arno, you're an errand boy, and funnily enough, we have a task for you.
From here, Arno was sent on his way to the king's palace, truly facing consequences for his mistakes. It's here though that the true story kicks in, as Arno meets the historically iconic Napoleon Bonaparte, a man that will go on to become a great friend to Arno, as opposed to, just another historical figure. Because let's be honest, if you had to name more than about 5 characters Arno actually had a relationship with in the original story, I doubt that you'd be willing to bet much on that. And so, we see Napoleon and Arno fight their way through extremists, before making a quick escape. Following this, we had a mission or 2 extra of Arno essentially running errands for the assassins, and we see a depressive anger come over him as he's stuck in said predicament. These couple missions would give some breathing room for the story, breaking up the pacing between the initial Lafreniere plot and the story to come, reducing some of the confusion as to the time jumps in certain moments. This sequence ends, however, with a tragedy, as one day Arno returns to the Assassin HQ to find the council once again in disarray and Mirabeau dead. Arno immediately freezes up, as the trauma left from his father's death resurfaces on his face, but Belek snaps him out of it. Master Kamar explains that a Templar pin and a cup filled with aconite were found in his room, a concoction that pointed in only one direction. The Templars had struck back. With Kamar taking over as leader of the assassins, the new council decide that they need to go on an offensive to prevent a massive Templar attack. They begin deciding how to attack, how to hunt down Germain, and they land on one Captain Rui, a Templar who's been exposing himself as of late. And suddenly, Arno chimes in. He saw Rui at the king's palace and made a connection with one Napoleon Bonaparte, part of his chain of command. The council mull amongst each other until Belek pipes up, saying Arno should be the one to lead this offensive, to hunt down Germain, as he's returned his rank and status. So instead of solving the murder of Mirabeau immediately, we leave it as a cloud, hanging over Arno and the assassin order as a whole. Yet another revenge motivation to put on Arno's shoulders so that he can go and hunt down Germain. Him, along with Belek, make their way to find Napoleon as the hunt for Rui and Germain begin. After a couple missions tracking him down, as well as giving more time for Arno and Bonaparte to build a friendship, Arno makes his way to kill Rui, as Belek breaks into the Templars' offices. They both find out that one Marie Levesque is conspiring to starve the city, blowing the flames of the revolution, and after bringing this information to Napoleon, he urges them to act quickly, or else the people will erupt. So Arno, Belek, and Napoleon follow the trail of grain back to Levesque, and it's clear the entire time that Belek doesn't trust Bonaparte, saying to Arno that he can't trust a man who doesn't believe in anything. Here, Pierre's dedication to the order shows, as in a mission to steal grain from Levesque's shipment, Belek refuses, claiming it goes against the creed to expose themselves like that, and that it will compromise the brotherhood. Arno, on the other hand, desperately wants to get to her, and so sprints after the shipment in broad daylight, potentially compromising the mission. Although this does lead Arno to Levesque's location, he has a major argument with Belek, who tells him that if he's going to disrespect the creed, then he's on his own. Pierre leaves both Arno and Napoleon, going back to the headquarters, saying that he'll take no part in compromising the brotherhood. So now it's just Arno and Bonaparte. From here we get a similar assassination, and in the White Room confession, Levesque leads Arno to Le Peltier, Germain's messenger boy. Arno lets Napoleon know, but neither of them have any idea how to find such an unknown target. But as Arno knows, there's one person who's on the National Convention, one person who knows all the goings on in Paris.
Who? You're not going to like it.
Of course, it's the sodomizer himself, the Marquis de Sade, Arno's old friend, contact, I'm not sure, but either way, we get a great back and forth between him and Napoleon, as Bonaparte is immediately disgusted by the man. Arnaud breaks up their spat, asking where he can find Le Peltier, and after some convincing, Marquis leads them to a cafe. Again, most of the black box assassinations in this alternate game would be identical, and the same goes here, as Arnaud kills Le Peltier and it's revealed that Germain will be at the king's execution the following day. But as Arnaud begins to head that way, Napoleon stops him, telling Arnaud that he can't afford to be seen at the execution, it will ruin his reputation, and that his duties in the military are taking him away from Paris. The two share a moment of friendship, maybe even a cheeky brief hug, like Ezio and Leonardo, just saying, and then they say their goodbyes. And now, Arnaud is truly alone. Jump to the execution and Arnaud finds Germain, who essentially gives the exact same speech as the original game. He speaks about Jacques de Molay. He talks about how the Templar order has become corrupted by politics, power and privilege. But then suddenly, out of nowhere, Belek appears behind Germain, hidden blade at his throat, and everyone freezes. Belek speaks into Germain's ear.
Templar scum, I know you found the temple, the sword. Tell me where it is, or it'll be your head on one of those pikes.
Germain chuckles under his breath.
The assassins, like all of history, once again seeking what we do. History truly does repeat itself. The temple, Germain, underneath the catacombs. But no matter. It'll be of no use to any of you.
Germain kicks Belek, turning and shooting him in the leg before sprinting away, and it's here where the game finally uses the parkour system properly in the story. Arnaud chases after Germain, and we get a major set piece across seemingly half of Paris, before finally Arnaud is able to strike the killing blow. Yes, Germain dies here instead of at the end of the game, and you'll see why in a second. The two speak, and finally Germain reveals the truth. Germain, the Templars, they didn't kill Elise. From the very start, Germain himself wanted Elise to work with him. He hated Delessert, but he saw Elise growing up. He loved her like she was his own daughter. No, it wasn't him who had her killed. It was the assassins. It was Belek, covered up by Delessert to protect the truce he created with Mirabeau. And after he covered it up, after he protected the assassins, Germain was done. He hatched a plan to purify the Templars, to take back control of Paris, to rid the order of its corruption, and finally, to get revenge for Elise. Arnaud stands there in shock. He can't believe it. He won't believe it. Germain passes away, his last words an undying love for the daughter he never had. And Arnaud realizes that all along, Germain and himself had the same motivation, revenge for Elise. They both loved her, albeit in different ways, and through that love, they both caused destruction and mayhem throughout the entire city. But not only that, Arnaud realizes a greater truth. Belek has betrayed him. Arnaud had to confirm it for himself. He sprints back to the cafe theatre to find who else but Pierre Belek having his leg bandaged. The two stare at each other.
Tell me it's not true. Took you long enough, pisspot.
Suddenly, two assassins come up behind Arnaud, blades pointed at his back. Facing the council, we get a similar scene to the real game, but here a deeper conspiracy unfolds itself. Belek lied about everything. He tells the council that it was him that killed Germain, that it was Arnaud who caused the commotion at the king's execution, that Arnaud betrayed the Creed hunting Mary Levesque, that Arnaud killed de Thun and Le Peltier without the council's permission. And so...
You've defied the orders of this council repeatedly, pursued targets without sanction, and flouted our creed at every step.
Master Trenet?
In light of these actions, I find I have no choice but to call for a vote of expulsion. Master Bellier.
Agreed. What are you...
Master Kemar.
Agreed.
Arnaud Dorian, you are attainted. Your rank and title are stripped from you, and you are hereby exiled from the Brotherhood of Paris.
You cannot be serious.
Belek betrayed Arnaud. Belek killed Elise. His fanaticism for the assassin order drove him to insanity, drove him to a lust for power, a lust to become an icon like Ezio and Altair, and it's left Arnaud crushed. Returning to Versailles, we get a similar drunken tirade, as Arnaud hunts down his watch, the last remnant of his father. But after he finds it, sitting on the steps of the Palace of Versailles, he sees a hand a hand he's not seen since that day all those years ago. Elise, or at least an illusion, a memory of what she was. He has a heart-to-heart with this mirage, telling her how he was wrong, how he just wanted her back, before suddenly he hears the words,
Revenge gets us nowhere.
He turns and sees the man he killed, Francois de la Serre.
It's my fault. I killed you. None of this would have happened if I'd never got involved.
You know that's not true, Arno. They need you out there. And then, finally,
Courage, my boy.
Arno turns and sees, after nearly 20 years, his father. Charles, Francois, and Elise explain to Arno that it's not about assassins or Templars, about revolutions or monarchies. None of it matters. All that matters is what's right or wrong. And there's still time for Arno to set his wrongs right. He looks down at his watch one last time, and then back up to see all three of them disappeared. He knows what he has to do. Not for revenge, not to avenge any of their deaths, but to redeem himself, and to make their deaths worth something. Walking away triumphantly from the palace, we get that same Latouche sequence as Arno finds out where the temple is through him. However, we completely cut out the Robespierre sections because honestly, all that does is weigh the story down and just break up the pacing of Arno's arc. So instead, Arno makes his way to the temple, where he sees the Parisian guards and the extremists fighting it out. He finds Belek, standing at the top of the tower. A quick sword fight ensues before Belek escapes his grasp, down to the entry of the catacombs. But by the time Arno reaches them, it's too late. Belek has the Sword of Eden in hand. We get a brilliant standoff, as Belek's true intentions come to light. He finally admits that it was him. He was the one who killed Elise, he was the one who killed Mirabeau, saying how the assassins had become corrupted, become too focused on politics and power, and not focused enough on killing Templars. He mirrors Germain in the scene perfectly, someone who's become so obsessed with their creed, with their order, that they can't see right or wrong. But then Pierre tries to reason with Arno, explains his plan, his purpose, to restore the Brotherhood, the same way Altair did, Ezio did, to bring it back to its true glory, its true purpose. After Arno refuses, however, Belek goes after Arno's true soft spot. He says that Arno always was stubborn, just like Elise was before she died. Arno's eyes widen, furious. He sprints towards Belek, but a blast of lightning comes flying out of the Sword of Eden, sending him flying back. Belek escapes, thinking Arno's dead, but Arno awakens, in pain, but driven for redemption, driven to save his Brotherhood, driven to finally make Elise's death worth something. He gets back to the HQ, where he finds Masters Kamor and Tenet lying dead. Following a trail of blood, he reaches the top of the Sainte-Chapelle, where he sees Master Bellier, barely standing but continuing to fight. Belek cuts Bellier down, and once again Arno and Belek face off. We get a massive final fight, similar to the original Belek fight but with the added elements of the Sword of Eden. Arno hears echoes of the past, echoes of Elise, of his father, of Napoleon, of de la Serre, of Mirabeau, as he tries to put a stop to Belek's madness, and finally he's able to cut Belek down. The Sword of Eden out of his hands, Belek kneels by Arno, and he gives a final monologue, still irrefutably set on his beliefs, still a fanatic, obsessed with becoming an assassin hero, speaking about how they could have changed France, how they could have saved it, how they could have left a legacy. And finally, Arno strikes the killing blow. He stands, walking slowly out of Sainte-Chapelle, before turning, seeing the Sword of Eden lying there. He begins to walk back before we cut to the temple, as Arno, with Napoleon by his side, have scoured the catacombs. Arno replaces the sword, knowing that in the wrong hands, it could cause a tyranny never the like seen before. We finish the game with Arno, a man who's lost nearly everything and everyone he's ever loved. Melancholic, but also somewhat hopeful. Hopeful that the fanaticism that's guided him and so many others through their lives might be subdued. We see an Arno who's become the default leader of the assassins, and we see the beginnings of him reforming it away from the cult it was when he joined. And ideally, with the addition of the mature Arno we see at the end of the Dead Kings DLC, this would be a perfect opportunity for Arno to have a sequel, potentially in other parts of France or in London, rebuilding the Brotherhood, reforming it to what it was. But that's for another day, and that might just be a dream. For now, we leave this game with one of the best speeches in the entire series.
The creed of the Assassin Brotherhood teaches us that nothing is forbidden to us. Once, I thought that meant we were free to do as we would, to pursue our ideals no matter the cost. I understand now. Not a grant of permission, the creed is a warning. Ideals too easily give way to dogma. Dogma becomes fanaticism. No higher power sits in judgment of us. No supreme being watches to punish us for our sins. In the end, only we ourselves can guard against our obsessions. Only we can decide whether the road we walk carries too high a toll. We believe ourselves redeemers, avengers, saviors. We make war on those who oppose us, and they in turn make war on us. We dream of leaving our stamp upon the world. Even as we give our lives in a conflict that will be recorded in no history book. All that we do, all that we are, begins and ends with ourselves.